High school in the 1970s in America was a revolution in real time. The strict formality of the 1960s crumbled. Long hair became common, and jeans replaced slacks. Teachers became less feared, and classrooms grew looser. That decade transformed school from a place of rigid control into something recognizable as the modern high school. The changes happened fast, and they were everywhere. Let us walk through what it actually felt like to go to high school in the 1970s in America. The dress code battles defined the early 1970s. Schools fought to maintain 1960s standards, while students pushed back hard. By the middle of the decade, most schools gave up. Jeans became acceptable. This was revolutionary. In the 1960s, jeans often meant being sent home. By 1975, jeans were everywhere. Bell-bottoms, flares, patched denim. Jeans were the uniform of the decade. Girls finally won the right to wear pants to school. This fight lasted years. School boards argued that pants on girls were inappropriate, but by the mid-1970s, resistance collapsed. Girls wore jeans, corduroys, and pantsuits. The skirts-only rule died. Hair length became the biggest battle for boys. Schools tried to enforce short hair policies, but students refused. Court cases followed, and parents sued school districts. By the mid-1970s, long hair won. Boys grew their hair past their collars, even past their shoulders. Facial hair appeared, mustaches and sideburns. Schools tried to ban them, but they mostly failed. Hair rules and formality were gone. T-shirts became acceptable. Band shirts, concert shirts, logo shirts. The 1970s invented casual school fashion. The classroom looked different and felt different. Desks still faced forward in most schools, but the rigidity softened. Some schools experimented with open classrooms, circular seating, and group work. The teacher was no longer an untouchable authority figure. You still called them Mr. or Mrs., but the distance narrowed. Some younger teachers wanted to be called by their first names. Most schools did not allow it, but the desire showed how things were changing. Teachers dressed more casually. Men lost the mandatory tie. Women wore pantsuits instead of just dresses. Teaching methods evolved. Lectures continued, but discussion increased. Teachers asked for opinions, not just memorized facts. Critical thinking entered the vocabulary. The idea that students should question and analyze became acceptable. The 1960s had valued memorization and obedience. The 1970s started valuing engagement and thinking. Group projects appeared. Students worked together instead of just individually. Textbooks started including questions that had no single right answer. History classes began examining different perspectives. The idea that America had flaws became discussable. This was a massive shift from the patriotic instruction of the 1960s. Technology entered the classroom in new ways. The overhead projector became standard. Teachers wrote on transparent sheets and projected them onto screens. Film strips were everywhere. The teacher would load the film strip, turn off the lights, and advance frames while a record or tape provided narration. The beep told you to advance to the next frame. Educational television expanded. Schools wheeled in television carts. Students watched programs designed for classroom use. The pocket calculator arrived and caused massive controversy. Early in the decade, calculators cost hundreds of dollars. By the late 1970s, basic calculators cost $20. Schools debated whether to allow them. Math teachers argued calculators would destroy students' ability to do arithmetic. Some schools banned them. Others embraced them. The calculator debate was the 1970s version of the smartphone debate today. Discipline changed dramatically. Corporal punishment disappeared in many states and school districts. The paddle that terrified students of the 1960s was banned in progressive areas. It continued in the South and in rural areas, but the trend moved against it. New discipline methods replaced paddling. Detention became standard. If you misbehaved, You stayed after school, sitting in a supervised room, doing nothing. In school, suspension appeared. Problem students were isolated in a room all day instead of being sent home. The shift from physical to non-physical punishment marked a fundamental change in how schools viewed discipline. The principal was still feared, but less so. The principal became an administrator, not just a disciplinarian. Authority softened everywhere. The social scene was more complex and more visible than the 1960s. Cliques defined high school social structure. Jocks were the athletes who played football and basketball. They dated cheerleaders and dominated school culture. Burnouts were the kids who smoked, cut class, wore concert shirts and denim jackets. They hung out in parking lots. Nerds were smart kids who were socially awkward. Being smart was not cool. Preps were clean-cut, well-dressed kids from good families. They followed rules and planned for college. Where you sat at lunch, who you talked to, what you wore, marked your social position. Smoking areas existed at many high schools. Schools designated outdoor areas where students over 16 could smoke during breaks. This seems insane now, but it was normal then. Drugs entered high school culture. Marijuana was widespread. Schools struggled to respond. Drug education programs appeared, but drugs were part of the 1970s youth culture, and schools could not stop it. Dating was open and accepted. Couples held hands in hallways and kissed between classes. Dances happened regularly: homecoming, prom, winter formal. These events were big deals with decorations, themes, dress-up clothes, and drama. Pop culture invaded schools completely. Music was everywhere. Kids carried transistor radios. Later in the decade, boomboxes appeared. Students played music in parking lots before school. Rock music, disco, funk, and punk by the late 1970s defined identity. Concert culture was huge. Going to concerts was a major part of teenage life. Students wore concert shirts as badges of honor. Lockers became personal spaces decorated with posters, mirrors, and magnets. Schools allowed personal expression in ways the 1960s never did. Movies shaped teenage culture. Popular films of the era influenced fashion, language, and behavior. School spirit was encouraged through pep rallies. The gym would fill with students. The band played, cheerleaders performed, coaches introduced teams, students chanted and screamed. Pep rallies built excitement for Friday night football games. Football remained a community ritual. The whole town came to the game. Football was not just a sport, it was a social event that defined fall in American towns. Extracurricular activities multiplied. Drama club, debate team, school newspaper, yearbook, and a growing mix of student organizations became part of everyday life. Schools encouraged participation. Yearbooks documented everything. The yearbook staff photographed events, sports, clubs, and candid moments. Getting your yearbook at the end of the year meant collecting signatures from friends, and what people wrote in your yearbook mattered. The 1970s transformed American high school from the strict formal institution of the 1960s into something closer to what we recognize today. The rules relaxed, fashion loosened, teaching evolved, authority softened, students gained freedom and voice. For people who attended high school in the 1970s, the memories are vivid. The music, the fashion, the freedom, it all felt new and exciting. High school in the 1970s was the bridge between the old America and the new one.